When planning your will or managing your finances, you may have heard about setting up a trust. It is a process that can be confusing because there are so many types, such as living trusts, estate trusts. Our legal expert, Tommy Taneff, is here to help clarify some of the mystery of trust. And Tommy, thank you for being here. And it is a mystery. So let's start with the basics. What is a trust?
Well, a trust is a legal document. It's an instrument. It's something that is executed during one's life, and it can be used to either avoid probate. It can be also used to avoid estate taxes. It can also be used to control money for children or grandchildren beyond the age of 21.
It sounds like this is something for people who have a lot of income and will have a lot of disposable income, a lot of savings. Is that true, or is that not the case? That everybody, no matter your income, should think about this?
Well, obviously, those are the best clients, and those are the ones we want.
Well, right, and it makes sense for them.
But even somebody with a mediocre income or average income should consider a trust. For example, do they want to control money for a child beyond the age of 21? If so, you got to have a trust. Mm-hmm. Or do you want to avoid the public scrutiny of the probate process? So if you want more privacy, another great reason to have a trust.
People think that they don't have to go into probate court. It's not going to happen to them, that their estate will be taken care of when they die, and they don't have to go to probate court. But that does happen.
It can. And again, one of the great ways to avoid probate is to have a trust. Now, for those of your audience out there that might have a trust, mm-hmm. one of the most common mistakes that people make that have a trust is they don't fund it. Or they fund it in the beginning with assets, they acquire new assets, and they forget to fund the trust.
I got it.
So if you want to avoid probate, if you want to maintain privacy, you have to keep this stuff up to date. You have to fund that trust and make sure that everything is up to date.
You talk about avoiding probate to avoid public scrutiny. Is that always the case? Once you're in public and in court like that, everything's an open book?
It could be, especially if you become disabled and have to go into a guardianship because you either didn't have a trust or you didn't have a power of attorney, and now all of a sudden everything about your life becomes public record. So you've got your neighbors and your friends and everybody snooping to their delight mm-hmm. into your private life. One way to avoid that, again, is to consider a trust, but you have to fund it.
It sounds so scary when you say trust because it's an unfamiliar term to people, and many times they're not quite sure what to do with it, what kind to get. Can you advise people what's the best for their situation?
It depends, Gail, but on the average, it's typically a living trust. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have some estate tax issues, then you might consider what's known as an AB trust or a living, or say marital and family trust. That's typically what you'd see. But in general, what we're talking about is a living trust.
When you say people forget to fund it, does that basically mean they've set it up, say, for a child, but then as the years go by, they never put any money in for that child? So in the end, they still end up in court.
That's exactly right. They forget to fund it, or they begin funding it in the beginning, and then they kind of stop. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing with the trust and with your estate plan. You have to keep this stuff updated.
Who does the updating, you or them?
Well, it depends. You know, the lawyer can help the client update this information, or they can show you how to do it. And then once you show the client how to update and fund the trust, then they can continue doing it on their own.
Well, from the very beginning, is it hard to set up a trust, and is it expensive to set up a trust?
It can be. I mean, on the average, you know, people can plan on spending somewhere around $1,500 to $2,500 to set up a living trust. But again, the advantages, especially when it comes to avoiding the estate taxes. Now, this year, there's no estate tax. We don't know what's going to happen next year. Congress may or may not change the law. But if they do not change it, then you'll have estate taxes next year.
It's so interesting how the laws change, which is one reason I would think that it's not a good idea for someone who doesn't know much about the law to try to do something like this themselves.
It's the biggest mistake that we see is where people take this task on their own.
And then you're trying to correct their mistake.
And then we have to fix it, and it's a mess.
So it's best to go to you, and then you will look at what's best for their family situation, their individual situation?
Exactly.
And if you have a trust, there's no probate court usually.
If you fund it.
If you fund it. Well, we've had your phone number up, Tommy, so I know that some folks will be calling you if they want to find out more, or if it's a good idea for them to go through with something like this.
Thanks for having me back. Hope to see you again.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks, Gail.